And we are live. Hello, everybody. What's up? Thanks for joining us again. And hi, Brett.
What is going on, guys? How's everybody doing tonight? Is there somebody in the chat? Somebody tell me. How you guys doing tonight?
Well, we know that we know your favorite fan is Shane Wilder, right? Is surely here. No, I don't know. I don't see him yet.
This is the weirdest part because like when I do my show, because like it's on my end on YouTube, so I can see the live chat. When I do this, I can't see anything, so I have no idea if who I'm speaking to right now. I could be speaking to anyone.
Oh, so that's weird that I'm able to see it. Is there something that I wonder if there's something on StreamYard that I am supposed to click on to let you see it?
Like I can follow it along. Like I can follow it along on my phone, but I get too distracted by that stuff anyways. Like there'll be times where I get lost in it when we're doing the show, and I'll ask Mary to do her outro, and she'll do her outro, and then I'll be like, "Oh, and do your outro," and I'll like ask her again, and not realize that I already asked her.
Well, you have been through, I want to tell our viewers, you have been through the ringer today because didn't you do like some kind of like crazy 4 or 5 hour marathon today?
Yeah, we did a 4-hour stream today. The show hit 100,000 subscribers on Friday.
Oh,
so today,
good.
So today we did like a 4-hour 100,000 subscriber celebration. It was a lot of fun. It was really crazy. Like we did the normal length show, so the show is about an hour and a half to 2 hours long. And the rest of the time we just took chats and hung out and talked. But by the end of that, like, you know, my blood sugar is starting to plummet, and I'm crashing and stuff like that. So by the end of the 4 hours, my already bad speech is starting to slur worse. So I got to be careful about that stuff.
Are you trying to tell us that you're drunk, Brett?
Wouldn't that be nice? But no, it's just by the end of 4 hours, you're just like, okay, and then here's the outro, But yeah, so we're good to go.
It is it feels like such a marathon. Anything over 2 hours, like even for me, like I capped us on Monday nights now at an hour and a half because I'm like, I'm waitressing now. I just can't do more than an hour and a half of the streaming because like it really is. It's an endurance test. And here's the thing. You know, I did like 3 of those 24-hour live streams. And I know that seems insane, but let me tell you, this is what's kind of weird about it, is my point, is that in a way, like the 4-hour ones, the 3 and 4 hour ones are more difficult because you do sort of hit a point with the live streaming. If you're going that long, something sort of kicks in, you know, finally the Adderall kicks in. No, I'm joking.
I'll do 2 days then.
Oh man, and be like cleaning your house, you know?
Yeah. Taking a TV apart and putting it back together again. Yeah.
Oh man, but no, seriously, like I find that the most difficult live streams are the ones where I've tried to do just like, I'm going to talk for 4 or 5 hours because it's just kind of like you're not quite kicked in the gear fully. But congrats to you.
Thank you. The last one we did like was 5 hours, and that one felt like today felt more difficult than the last 5-hour one. But I think it's just a matter of like how much sleep did you get the night before? Like, you know, did you eat properly? I probably didn't eat enough beforehand, which is like I've spent the last couple of years doing the show trying to figure out exactly what I need to eat to like not crash by like the second hour of the show and stuff like that. There's a lot of people who will give you a lot of advice on all that stuff, but and I don't eat breakfast nearly enough. I should eat breakfast way more, but I don't. So I tend to be crashing. And like for some reason, I think it's like, you know, they always talk about like midday, like that 3 o'clock time period really is kind of like the sluggish part of your day for a lot of people, like those last 2 hours before work is over. So our show just happens to have it at a time where like my biorhythm is really, really low. So I have to like perk up right before we go live. Yeah.
Next time you're up for, like a contract renewal or whatever, you need to get them to accommodate your biorhythms better. No, I'm serious.
That would be nice. That would be nice.
It's like Marilyn Manson, for instance. I've got a number of Manson fans, and one of the things about him is that for a while, I don't know about now, right? But for a while, he very famously said that he was on a night schedule, right? And so like he would stay up until, I mean, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, right? But like until like 5 a.m. in the morning, and then get up like well into midday. Would that suit you better? Would that be more to your taste?
No, because I usually go to bed at about 3 or 4. I go to bed at 4 and I wake up at 8 or 9, depending on the day. So I sleep about 4 to 5.
You just don't get much sleep then, is what you're saying.
I don't sleep. I catch up on the weekends. Like Saturday, I'll get like 9 or 10 hours, and that'll kind of even it out. But in general, I don't get a whole ton of sleep. I've never been good at sleeping, as my parents always like to tell me. My brother slept all the time. I never slept, so it doesn't change much as you get older.
Well, now that you mention it, it's funny because I hadn't thought about it for a while, but I had noticed that whenever I am like on Instagram, it tells you like if people are active or whatever, like you're always like there like early and then really late at night. And like oftentimes I've thought, wow, he doesn't get much sleep. So you truly don't, as it turns out.
During the day, luckily, it keeps me off my phone enough. But that would also, I mean, to be honest, that would also help. Like the best thing you can do for your sleep rhythm is to not be on your phone late at night. That's one of the things I'm not super good at. I'm actually, I'm deciding, like Mary does, like she goes through Lent. I'm not religious, but I'm wondering if maybe I should try to do a little bit less of everything once that rolls around.
We probably all benefit from it. Then, I mean, and then again, there's probably tons of changes that we should be making in our relationship to technology. I think where it becomes kind of like interesting too, or problematic or whatever, is like people like you and me, and it's not just us, but there are a lot of people who they're making a living or trying to make a living actually partly through social media. And so I think that it becomes ever more insidious for people like us and other people who have to be online for their occupations or careers or whatever, because it's like, oh no, I'm just working. Like I have this conversation all the time with my guy, and he'll say, you need to just don't be on the phone so much. And sometimes like, I think he's being extreme, but other times it's like, I know I'm lying to myself. I'm like, oh, I'm doing work and whatever. And like, I sort of am, but it kind of bleeds over.
He's probably, I mean, I honestly think he's right. I do think he's right. Like for me, I'm pretty lucky, like, because I have like a job here that like I get to do it as a job and not just as like a job where I'm working for myself. So there's like a little bit of security there. Like I don't tweet enough to make it, like, for the amount of time that I spend online, I don't tweet enough or engage enough to actually benefit my job. So it's even worse. Like, at least you're actually doing stuff that may help with engagement or draw eyes to your product. I'm more of I'm a lurker. Like I read a bunch of stuff and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. But I'm always like, do I care enough to respond? And most of the time I don't. I just, it's probably not the most constructive use of my time most days, but I go through phases as well. It really depends. Like in the summer, I'll be skating more, so I'll be on my phone less. Winters are always a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, I think so. I think other people feel that way too. So I want to ask your opinion on several things. We have not talked about the Super Bowl. I texted you last night.
Yeah.
And said I want to talk about this, but I want like your fresh, because I did not watch Pop Culture Crisis today, which is your show, by the way. I just put the link up earlier. People check it out. They just got 100,000 subscribers. By the way, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you as well.
Yes.
So anyway, I'm curious, what are your big takeaways from the Super Bowl, just generally speaking, and then we can get more into questions I have.
Well, let's go into what you wanted to talk about. Let's just go right into it. You wanted to talk about the incident on the sidelines with Travis Kelce and Andy Reid.
So let's put up the video here real quick, because I'm sure that some people have not. I'm sure everybody has seen it, or almost everybody. But here we go. Hey, do you know kind of what preceded this? Like, I know some people were saying that Travis Kelce was upset that he hadn't been put into play much. Was that kind of what was going on?
So they fumbled, and he wasn't on the field when it happened, which is what precipitated him getting in Andy Reid's face. So here it is. Let's go ahead and look at the clip. Here he is. My favorite headline, I'm sorry, but like I watched some of these news networks running cover for him. They said he's yelling at him and that he ran into Coach Reid. That he ran into him. He just
it looks a little more direct.
Yeah. Go ahead and play the clip for people who might not have seen it.
One thing I want to ask everybody: how is our sound? Are we pretty evenly matched? Because I get the feeling you might be a little bit louder than me, but that may not be though. That may not be. So just tell us in the comments. In the meantime, we're going to watch this, and so tell us and then figure out, guys and ladies, what do you think about this? Because I'm curious. All right.
After the fumble, comes over to Andy. He goes, "Keep me in." What happened is, on the fumble, he was not in the game. Noah Gray went in, and he had to block.
All right. One more time. One more time. I want to watch it one more time here. All right.
After the fumble, he comes over to Andy. He goes, "Keep me in." What happened is, on the fumble, he was not in the game. Noah Gray went in.
I like how his buddy comes over and grabs him too.
That's his job. That's his job. Look, I played team sports most of my childhood, all the way up into high school. When you're in the middle of something that you're passionate about, and when your testosterone is, your adrenaline is spiking, and you're high testosterone, and you really care about what's going on, you can do some stuff that you might not agree with, right? So I don't think he should have put his hands on him. I think he should be fined for that, probably. But I think that the adrenaline of being in that moment is very different. And it's just one of those things where I look at something where two people who take opposing viewpoints but are reaching towards a common goal, and they've had incidents before. So
you're talking about the coach and
yeah, they came into the team. As far as I remember, they came in around the same time in like 2013. I don't think this is much of anything. I think that he probably should be fined for touching the coach. I have more of an issue with the media pretending like he tripped and fell on him and it was just an accident. That's what I found.
I haven't seen that coverage. That sounds is that pretty common coverage right now?
It was a People magazine article from today where they're like, he tripped or he bumped into him. I'm like, he didn't bump into him. He grabbed him by the arm. It also looked like the coach was off balance and that he caught him by surprise, and that if the coach was centered more, that he probably wouldn't have happened. Like if the coach hadn't lost his balance and fallen off, and fallen over to the side, I don't think as much of a big deal would have been made about it. Yeah. But I also don't think that you put your hands on the coach. So I do think that a fine is in order. I wouldn't make anything more of it beyond that. I wouldn't.
I think that's a fair assessment. Like, and there's a lot of like context that we're not seeing of, like, you were talking about how the coach kind of unexpectedly sort of fell over. Like, I don't know. Yeah. It's hard to tell in a video. It's hard to tell what degree or what sort of force of contact we're getting, or if he had already been kind of running. I could see if you were talking about being like all hyped up. You're all hyped up. You're upset. You kind of run over, and it's sort of like it wasn't. I'm not going to at all try to frame that as any kind of assault, because it wasn't. It was disrespectful to his coach, and to me, it seemed unduly aggressive. But so here's the question I know you know a lot of people have been asking. Apart from that, the issue of football and whether that was appropriate or not, do you think this, like, I hate to be like so obvious and blunt, but let's say you had a sister. Would you feel good about a sister? And I don't even know if you do, but let's say you did. Would you feel good about her dating Travis Kelce after seeing that? Or would you be like, well, it's a little
it's different. I think that that's a very, very big assumption to make based on a completely different situation than your romantic inclinations. First of all, there is, for most of us, at least most of us that I would like to think, there is a certain level of behavior in which we're trained as men and how you're supposed to behave around women, right? So your social inclination towards what is acceptable to do to a coach or somebody who's male of the same gender is very different than how you are kind of raised and programmed to treat women. So just because he is aggressive in this situation, and I don't know if I wouldn't call this an assault, but I did see like a lot of like very, very, like I saw some posts from women saying like, he looks like he would beat women. And I said, that is a huge leap to make. Yeah. And it's a lot of speculation for something that hasn't happened, nor do we have any evidence of. So no, I wouldn't even address the question unless there was more to talk about there.
But okay, I agree with you on that about the assault. I'm just curious though, in terms of showing just maybe a volatility personally that's maybe not so healthy, or you think, nah, it's a football thing, we don't know if it extends beyond that realm or not?
Look, think about like this is so first of all, there's the adrenaline of the game. There's the fact that you do this for a living. You're paid millions of dollars every year. These are the most competitive people in the world. They train incredible. They train just amazing hours most of the year, right? And they're in peak physical shape to do this job that they're doing in front of millions upon millions of people. I think that that is a very unique situation to find yourself in. And if you're a naturally competitive person and you are dead set on winning this game, I don't see that as the same thing. Unless there's evidence of him where he gets in arguments with women out in public, and even then, like I'm not ready to lay that at somebody. I wouldn't look at it that way. I guess maybe it's because I'm an athlete. I was an athlete growing up and I played sports. I think that that's a very, very broad generalization to make for somebody when there's no evidence, at least not that I know of. Again, I don't know the dude's history or anything like that.
But I know
I'm not willing to say that about the dude. I think that passion on the field is usually something that they will reward far more than they will criticize.
Yeah, and I'll add to that along the lines of what you're saying. You know, some of my viewers know that my guy is ex-military, and he was in the infantry, and it's pretty much even with the attempts at integration of women, like it's still very much a male thing, right? And there were behaviors that would go on in that environment between the men that he would never think of transferring to his behaviors with women, you know,
because it's not beaten into us, but
but you know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
It's ingrained in our behavior, you know, from a very, very young age. I know that that's one of the main reasons why they're hesitant to put women in frontline combat beyond the physical ramifications is that a male's reaction to a man getting hurt is going to be vastly different than a man's reaction to a woman getting hurt, and that can affect outcomes.
I would think that's right. Yeah, and I've heard that before. I think even in G.I. Jane, they had this debate actually. Yeah. By the way, I went back and looked at that movie. I think we talked about it.
It got mentioned at some point.
It's really, and I'll just say it's really just an interesting like sort of thought exercise. But what I really thought was interesting about it, Brett, is that it was not a woke attitude. Like, in fact, in the movie, she gets mad that they want to use different Demi Moore's character. She gets mad that they want to use different standards for her than for the men. Yeah. And so it's basically like anti woke now. So, you know, that's something. Camel says, did you all check out what Coach Andy Reid, his response was to the whole thing? So what was it again, Brett?
He says he caught me off balance. He was looking at the play calling sheet. That was the other thing about it, is like he's very clearly in the middle of something. Like he caught him off balance. Like that's what it looked like to me. And that's what he said about it, that he caught him off balance, and it wasn't that it was necessarily a harsh physical throw or anything like that. But this is just, I guess, like to me, this is a lot of, oddly enough, it's us Monday morning quarterbacking something that we weren't even there for, which is, you know, fine. That's our job to talk about this stuff. But I found it outlandish, the amount of like people that were basically like leaping from this to he's gonna beat.
Yeah, no, that's not cool. Like, and I hope that wasn't what people thought I was implying in the little poll that I did, because that's not. It's more like, to me, when I said, "Does she have trouble ahead?" It's more just like, is that showing us something of volatility about his character in general, or is this something just like the football and he was hyped up and it was not a big deal? It's hard to tell. Like, you can't tell it from the video.
Well, the idea would be that, look, he, like, the ability to use your use your adrenaline in a game is vastly different than how you're supposed to approach a disagreement with a girlfriend or a spouse and stuff like that. Right. And the idea is that, and I also saw people blaming the vax. And
I think that was a joke, surely, right?
Oh, and I'm like, bro, you people are either bad at jokes or you're terminally online. And it's just, it was funny. The Super Bowl was interesting because we had a lot. We talked about it for about 30 minutes today about different aspects of what was going on. We talked about the Joe Biden meme, which I got a huge kick out of. I actually laughed really hard at the Joe Biden meme.
I think this one is it needs a little bit of explanation.
Yes.
So is it just on his Twitter? Is that he posted?
Yeah, it's on his, it's not on the POTUS Twitter. It's on his personal Twitter.
Okay. I'll find it. So,
basically he posted like the Dark Brandon meme. It's like him with the laser eyes, and it says like, just like we drew it up because they won the game. And there's been all of this discourse on that made me laugh. I don't care what anyone says. If you're going to be a conservative and you're going to dunk on people who can't take Trump's mean tweets, you have to be able to take the tweets when they're thrown back at you.
Okay, but wait,
and the joke is always the left can't meme. This is actually a fairly funny meme. I laughed.
Okay, but just because I didn't get it the first time though, is the actual the meme is referring to the conspiracy theory, right? And it's like,
yes,
like
the Super Bowl was rigged because
funny,
people were
funny, yeah.
People were saying that the Super Bowl's rigged, and that that they're gonna rig the Super Bowl so that Travis Kelce can win the Super Bowl and then propose to Taylor Swift just as she's about to endorse Joe Biden. And I'm just like,
that's pretty ridiculous.
Yes, like, is she going to endorse Joe Biden? Sure, yeah, probably. But the idea that it's all going to happen in like one, and
that's like Pizzagate absurd.
Yeah. And I look at this stuff, and look, if you don't find it funny, that's fine. But like, also,
I agree with you.
But like, no, what I'm saying is like, if you think that Trump's mean tweets are funny, then you have to be able to take the mean tweets when they come back at you, at least when they're actually entertaining. And this one I thought was actually pretty clever. And now by that, I don't mean that I think he did it. I think that an intern did this.
Oh no,
I think Joe Biden was probably already asleep by the time that this came out.
Of course not. Well, okay, so I'm glad you brought up the next thing. There were two things, as some of you might know. There were two things that happened on Friday night. That was it Thursday night or Friday night, but at any rate, that were a lot of people were contrasting online. One was the airing of Putin's interview with Tucker Carlson, and then the other that people were drawing a contrast to was Biden's press conference, in which he responded to an official government report stating that he was basically senile and sort of cognitively impaired. No, but I mean, I'm just saying that's that's basically.
It's hilarious. Look, I got through about an hour of the Putin interview. I couldn't make it through the whole thing. I like I said, I don't even like pay super close attention to politics these days, but it is just so funny to watch basically our president be given a free pass for doing something wrong because he's not even all there mentally, but he's still running for re-election. I can't believe that they're going to do that.
Yeah, well, and look, let me just say this. Like, I certainly have a ton of people in my audience, let me say many more than in your audience, who are very much anti-Trump. And I just want people to know, like, I can hear the chorus at times. Like when I make fun of Biden, I can hear sort of imaginarily in my ear people saying, yeah, but look at Trump. Trump's ridiculous. Trump this or Trump that. Maybe not, maybe, I don't know. But leaving that aside, because we will talk about Trump at some point down the road. But leaving that aside, we just have to focus for a second on the fact that I really do think we have a senile president. Like that in and of itself, even apart from whatever you think about Trump, to me, that is really, it's noteworthy. It's kind of like one of these crazy stories from like ancient Rome, where at times you would have people who would land on the throne who were kind of incapacitated in various ways. And so like other people around them in the shadows would be like running a shadow government. And it's interesting, Brett Weinstein even suggested that, like, hello, if this guy is this incapacitated, then basically the government is being run not through an elected official. I mean, what do you think about that kind of talk?
I mean, that's not unreasonable, right? And a lot of people talk about the fact that a president is only as good as the cabinet that he brings aboard, and in the whether they have control of the House or the Senate, their ability to push through legislation and things like that. But it really does feel like it's run on autopilot. But isn't that kind of the whole point of everything that Trump used to say, was that it's not necessarily what he refers to as the deep state, which I think is it does a disservice to the critique, because it makes it sound like a Tom Clancy, villain.
Right.
But really what you're talking about, what you're really talking about is the dozens upon dozens, if not hundreds of unelected officials who work for their own interests and the interests of their, their predecessors, the interests of the people that they are grooming to take their position when they leave their post, right? The ones who aren't brought in by the public, who have a large say in how things are run in the government. And that's most of the time what they mean in that context. So right now it essentially is being run by people that aren't just Joe Biden, but that's not all that shocking to me. I laugh because we can't find a middle ground. Everyone always wants everybody to vote younger, and I look at the young politicians of today and I don't see a whole lot of hope there either, because I see a lot of bombastic personality online, a lot of ridiculous progressive idealism that I don't find to be in tune with what the public actually wants. And I'm referring to both sides. I look at the young politicians. I'm like, can we shoot for somebody in the middle? Like I was all in for Vic. I'm all for Fetterman 2024, by the way, guys. I'm all in for Fetterman 2024 this year. Look, if we're going to elect people with brain damage, I say we elect the guy who called the heads of Harvard pinkos. Like I'm down with that.
It is interesting how he changed after whatever he's been through with the neurocognitive stuff. He has changed in a lot of ways, it seems, and yeah, for the better. I crazily enough, and ballsy, gotten very ballsy. I don't know. I mean, people say you're going to have brain injuries. It changes your personality.
I want to see him. I want to see him show up in like that fake tux that he wears. Like I want to see him be inaugurated with the fake tux. Look, we missed out on the ability to have Vivek as president. I think he would have been better, but we're not going to get that now. So
you were a big Vivek fan? I don't know much about him. Tell me, why were you a Vivek fan?
I was a fan of him because every interview that they gave to him, he had a lot of people were criticizing him as like a right-wing Obama because he said all the right things. They said, well, if we're supposed to criticize them having all the right things to say, I don't even know what to do with that. I think for the most part, he was able to handle the misinformation that was given to him by the media expertly. Every time they tried to lead him into a bad answer in one of his interviews.
You're right. He was good at
handle them perfectly. It's fantastic. He always had strong opinions on every issue. I think that he's a good representation of like what we want here in America. Businessman, built a life for himself, has a family. I laugh because I'm like, well, what else do you want? Like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm actually looking forward to post 2024 when both Trump and Biden after this election are too old for it, to see what other old ass person they drag out onto the stage to leave us with. But the right certainly doesn't have anyone there that they're actually going to champion. They missed the boat with Ron Paul. I don't know what they plan to do, but it's hilarious to watch all of this happen because I'm so disconnected from it for the most part. Like the stuff that I pay attention about in politics is like, I paid attention to the bare minimum of like what I need to know to be informed. I think that's what I found is that's a good middle ground for me, because when I pay too close attention, it just tends to be it just leaves me very jaded most of the time. So like I joke and I say Fetterman 2024, but for the most part, I just look at politics and find it unbelievably depressing these days.
So I think probably you're in the majority opinion on that. My opinion about age is that I really don't care, as long as it's kind of like I really just care about the competency or the intelligence or the wisdom of the person who's running. Yeah. So though, when I look at someone. Look, here's the thing: when people use the Trump comparisons, and really, like AJ, like I seriously am putting aside here the question for the moment of whether he was a terrible president or whatever, but just strictly in terms of just thinking about dementia and mental competence. Like when I listen to Joe Biden speak, that is someone who obviously there is something wrong, like the signals are not getting through like they used to. You can look at video of him back when he was Obama's running mate or when he was running against Obama in 2008. And you can see that even though he would still at times take these sort of long-winded routes through stories or what have you, he was a sharp man. I'm not saying that he didn't have his deficiencies, but that was a very sharp man. And it's a completely different man than we see now. Whereas I look at Trump and what I see for all of the issues that people may say that he has that get into some other time debating that, but I see someone who don't you think Trump is sharp? I mean, do you see evidence of cognitive impairment? He seems like he's pretty sharp to me.
No, he still seems very, very sharp to me. And again, like I loathe to even think about voting this time around. I'm just so over it.
I know.
The funny thing is like more than anything, like people are going to talk about. I feel like immigration has become this huge issue right now. But given like how long a 4-year period is and the age of some of our Supreme Court justices, I think the one of the big things that people have to worry about is like the next president could possibly end up having a say in the nomination of a Supreme Court justice or two. So I think that is something to think about even more than just thinking about whether it's immigration reform or the economy and stuff like that. And trust me, I have my own critiques of Trump. I think that a lot of the stuff with the stimulus packages and everything I wasn't a fan of. It plays into the inflation that we're seeing right now as well and stuff like that. Yes, the economy was better under him, but I don't think there's any good candidates. That's the way I see it, which is sad because you'd think in one of the greatest countries on earth, or the greatest country on earth, you'd be able to put forth thought leaders who could do that, but there's too much money in politics. There's too much influence. So you're kind of left with these options. And the sad fact of the matter is, or maybe it's not all that sad, is that, look, Trump has built a very, very loyal base of supporters, and nobody on the right has been able to coalition build in a way that he has, right? So what he's done is he's brought in a lot of these disaffected liberals, or somebody like myself who has a lot, still for the most part is very socially liberal for the most part in almost all things, maybe more slightly fiscally conservative most of the time, but like he was able to build a larger tent for people to operate under. And when he's gone, like it becomes another rematch of just neocon establishment and then America First movement. And you have to wonder who is going to be able to follow that up or bolster that audience the way that he did. And I don't know if they have someone that could do that. I liked Vivek a lot, but I don't know if necessarily a lot of the other people who are someone like me who I would consider myself a disaffected liberal, or as they say, I don't know if they're going to be able to build around somebody like that in the next election.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I did a video this last week about Tulsi Gabbard, and that's someone that I think that she is. I know that the critique on her, and I agree with this at times, is that sometimes she can be a bit dry. And her delivery, although I think that she's a much better communicator now than she used to be. But I look at her record. I see someone that I really think has a lot of integrity. But the problem, I really do. And one thing that I really admire, and I did a video on it this week, is that she has been very outspoken in critiquing U.S. aid to Ukraine and critiquing U.S. policy and not defending Vladimir Putin. But she has gotten a ton of criticism, and Hillary Clinton called her an asset, a Russian asset. So Tulsi Gabbard ended up suing Clinton.
Yeah, I remember that.
But here's my point. I really think that she is a person of principle, but she has some idiosyncratic views in the sense that, and I identify with this because I have the same issue. Like we don't neatly line up with all the party lines on things, all of the party's orthodoxies, and so like for me, it's issues like abortion. For Tulsi Gabbard, it's up until recently, it was her foreign policy views. Although it seems like more people now are coming on board, like with the Tucker Carlson interview, to other ways of thinking. But my point is just that I wish that somehow, you mentioned Ron Paul. I wish that somehow we could get to a point where we could have like just sharp, maybe sort of idiosyncratic thinkers who they are outside the box at times. But I wish people like that could be more mainstream,
That's never going to happen because if anything, politics has gotten more team sport oriented in the last 15 years than it ever has before. At least I'm only 37, but back in the day, you had blue dog Democrats. I certainly have friends who vote blue but are very pro gun, which I always laugh about because I'm like they hate they want to take your guns away. They do. But the thing is like they're like union Democrats, right? And they don't pay super close attention to it. But unless you're somebody who does, and you have to autistically watch everything about politics all the time, a lot of them don't realize is that you now have to fall in line with party orthodoxy on almost every issue. One of the things that's interesting is Trump told the right, he said, look, abortion is a losing issue. Like, not compromising on abortion is going to cost you elections. And he's right. And the interesting thing about that is I have a lot of very like vocal, principled, religious conservatives who are willing to lose the election on the moral basis that they believe that that pro-life is the only choice to make. And I respect that ability to stand by your beliefs. But the thing is most politicians can't afford to operate only on moral principles. They have to learn to make compromises somewhere. And what do? Back in the day, you could cross we still have we have a Joe Manchin who will cross the aisle because he seems to be more focused. He seems to be more focused on what the people in his district want than a lot of them. But
he's in West Virginia, right?
Yeah. But for the most part, the average politician these days has to rigidly fall in line with what the party orthodoxy is. I think the left is more guilty of that than the right these days. Personally, I could be wrong. But that's the way it seems to me. Like, a lot of people on the right are willing to listen to what Tulsi Gabbard has to say, even though they might not agree with her having a more left-wing approach to gun control. I believe, if I remember correctly, she's pretty pro red flag laws, stuff like that. All of that stuff, it's interesting. I don't think, unfortunately, that it's going to get better. I think it's going to become more tribal. I don't think that the internet has created more nuance. I think it's created more over the top, like the way that everything is done these days. It's just not going to happen. And that's a bummer, because I love, I don't pay as close attention as I used to, but the second I start getting into these discussions, I realized that I did used to love to talk about this stuff. And I love to have the debate with people on these things, but it seems like most people don't want to do that anymore. You got to fall in line with what the party wants. And that's the problem with the two-party system. There's too much money and influence in those two parties that nobody running third party is going to be able to have, play a role outside of maybe, siphoning votes from one of the candidates, but you're not going to see viable third party options.
Yeah, and I do think that Twitter, I mean Twitter, but Twitter X, but I just in general, I guess social media, wherever these things are discussed or promoted, I do think that it does enhance the tribal nature of politics, because, and I know you felt this too, you make friends with people online and you talk about stuff and you find out that you're generally on the same page politically, or maybe you were attracted to these people online because you were on the same page politically, but whatever. But then that becomes kind of like your gang. And so then when issues come along, and we both experience this in different ways, but when issues come along where you actually do feel idiosyncratically, you do feel something different to the group, there's really, I have to push myself, actually, I know, to speak out on the things that I do, because my natural inclination would just be well, don't say anything, because because we enjoy that tribalism, and it brings a lot of good things. There's lots of great exchanges that people are having on Twitter X now, and Elon, he's participating in everything. I'm seeing conversations about DEI and things like that that have really been interesting. But I do feel for people like you and me, you were talking about the Palestinian-Israeli thing, right? And now you felt like there's been pressure on you, right, to sort of
I mean, just in general, for me, I'm so anti-collectivist that I hate the idea of having to box myself into a label on either side, right? The interesting thing is, look, I work at a company that gets labeled right-wing all the time.
And I don't think it is. That's not how I would define it. But go on. I'm sorry.
But me and my co-host disagree on a whole host of issues, or take a nuanced stance, a different nuanced stance on a lot of this stuff. And I'm look, being a human being is complicated. I have a hard time deciphering what my own thoughts, feelings, and inclinations are towards any one given topic. I abhor the idea that I'm going to be labeled for that, because it's easier to categorize for people. But the problem is I understand why they do it, because it's kind of a universal shorthand. We as human beings kind of have to do that in a way. And I catch myself doing it with people, and I have to kind of correct myself and be look, just because they disagree with you on this doesn't make them this. Just because they agree with you on this does not make them this either.
Right.
But it's also in the world of politics, the idea of the individual just isn't as important as I wish it would be. But you can't. You have to build your party, you have to build your policies around large swaths of people, around groups, around causes.
That's right.
So unfortunately, it's kind of that that saying, like, the smallest minority will always be the individual. And I know that's a cliche thing to say, but it really is true. It's another reason why I don't care as much about politics these days, because I also think that the idea that a politician is out there working for me is also naive and an idea of generations past, not one certainly of today that the internet has helped bring to light. That is just clearly not the truth anymore.
Well, what you were saying about the difficulty in being an individual in a world where, in order to affect any kind of, not just change, but any kind of policy or what have you, we have to be groups. Like, for instance, most people work in a business of some kind where it's more than one person. People like me, working for themselves. But, like, you know what I'm saying? And so this is one of the things that I've talked about in my channel when I get into philosophy occasionally, like with the philosopher Hegel, who a lot of people find really intimidating. But basically, one of the things he was interested in was just how there is always going to be this conflict between. There's never going to be a period where we don't have conflict and war, because the very nature of identity and of group identity means that we have to coalesce not only around different things, but we have to be opposed to other things. Like, it's this dialectic of synthesis but then also opposition that's kind of constantly churning. And so it's why, I look at so many historic things going on historically or politically, and this is what I got from the Putin interview is that, yes, someone can be a ruthless dictator and they can be pursuing an immoral policy, perhaps, but at the same time, there is a whole other side to the equation of the United States and Europe and what's been going on with NATO, and major promises that were broken, and ways in which we have antagonized Putin. And that doesn't mean, it's not like, with like a wife beater or something, like, oh, well, she deserved it. I'm not saying like stupid analogies like that. I'm saying, though, that I'm tired of these naive ways of looking at politics and of conflict, because it's very complicated, and it would take like a philosopher at times to untangle, or a historian to untangle that stuff. I mean, Putin was going back like hundreds of years.
That was the most hilarious part. It's like, I also believe that a lot of that doing that is a tactic as well.
Sure.
To control the interview, which is fine. I do laugh at that, though, because like you were saying, I really do believe that rationally explaining why somebody behaved a certain way is not the same thing as excusing it.
Right.
But admitting that the world is a dangerous place and actions have consequences, right? That's not stupid. That's not immature or even immoral. It just is. And that's just the way of the world. The problem is when people have these arguments online, a lot of it comes from an emotional place, and I get that. But I just, when I see a lot of this stuff now, I just hand wave it away. I go, it is the way it is.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. And so I want to talk about the Putin interview, actually, because you said that you and I probably all together, we probably watched the whole thing right now. I'm still trying to make my way through it, but I watched like the first hour and a half, so I'm almost all the way through. And several observations that I have. I want to hear what you think. First of all, I did, of course, the history lesson at the beginning, like it was very much a tactic, and some
That's
people.
That's the part I got through the most of. I started to get distracted past that.
Well, so this is basically, let me just get to my point here, which is that I think that there were a number of things in that interview that Putin said that were entirely legitimate. And again, I'm not getting into the idea of whether or not that legitimizes what he's done in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm talking about that there were things that he said that were absolutely the truth, that paint us, the United States and Europe and NATO in a very bad light, where like we made promises that were very important to the Russians that were just blatantly not kept. And then when Russia approached us, when Putin apparently time and time again tried to get us and Europe to listen, he basically for the most part, he just got this like sort of like fuck off. Now I understand people say, oh, this shading it through his perspective, but I'm talking about just what I've read, independently in the media. And so so and he's talking about those hundreds of years of history, and in a way, yeah, he's just kind of like bloviating as a tactic. But at the same time, like, listening to what he was saying, what he was also trying to do is he was trying to say, look, when you Americans say Ukraine, you don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. Like, do you even know any of the history? Like, it did used to be considered part of Russia until the Soviets, whom you claim to hate Americans, the Soviets were the ones that broke it up, and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just saying that he does not strike me as unhinged in the way that Hitler was unhinged. Now, he has done undoubtedly evil things, and he continues to do evil things. And I wish that he had not have invaded Ukraine, but we're at the place that we're at. And it seems like we just have a lot of naivete toward the situation and toward Ukraine, frankly, where they're not even able to hold free elections. I mean, it's shady over there.
And like the reason for the part about the naivete, I think, is like, what you have to imagine then is take an American president, any of the last, maybe less so Trump, but you take Bush, you take Obama, you take Bush Sr., right? And then you put them down to be interviewed by a reporter from Afghanistan or Iraq or any of these countries, and they would look at that the same way, right? Like,
right.
We have done awful things in the name of our democracy, oil, and in various other things. Like, we've done unspeakable things, drones, on the ground troops, all of these things. The difference is now in the internet age, we have access to the views, because like they always say, in a story, everyone views themselves as the hero in their own story, right?
Sure,
A good villain should see themselves as the hero in their own story. The difference is now, because of the internet, we have access to the first person story told by people who may be trying to do harm to us.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And I think that, so I think that this overreaction about Tucker Carlson, how dare he do that? I thought that was really probably the most stupid part of this, is people saying that in itself is a traitorous act.
Yeah. I mean, that is also, that connects to the unbelievably polarized climate that we're in. Like I said, it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. Back when Mike Wallace or Barbara Walters or any of these people would interview somebody, it wasn't seen as a political act. Again, I wasn't politically active in the 90s. I was but a child.
No,
in the
you're
90s.
right, though. But you're right.
I don't remember journalists being seen as political figures in the same way that they are now.
No, they weren't. Well, I can tell you, as somebody who, like, at a kind of precociously young age, as stupid as that sounds, was watching the news and interviews and stuff, and somebody who's older than you as well by a number of years. And I can tell you that that's absolutely the case, is that when Barbara Walters, I think, sat down with Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, I think it was her or whomever, it was not seen as being this political move, or, oh, you're in bed with Ahmadinejad or anything like that. It's like, oh, wow, let's see what he has to say, even if we distrust him. It's valuable to know what he's saying.
Yeah. What's funny is it's kind of a tacit admission that journalism is in a way dead. Like, I do still believe, like, and this is my blackest of black pill takes, but I don't think most of this matters anymore, because in the end of the day, because of the internet, because of the divide and the polarizing nature of media and of entertainment, and especially of news and politics, we no longer live in the same reality as the people next to us. So depending on where you get your information, you might watch Fox, you might watch MSNBC, you might watch CNN, you might watch OAN, you might watch any of these news networks. Depending on what your social media algorithm shows you, where you get your information, you are living in a completely different reality than somebody else. It's like the joke used to be about kids wanting to turn their parents' Fox News off. Right? But it's not that anymore. Your parents' choice to watch CNN, or your parents' decision to watch Fox, even, say whatever way you lean. Maybe you're a libertarian, maybe you're a Republican, maybe you're a Democrat, sure. But if you're getting your media online, that's even different than what you're going to get if you watch right-wing or left-wing news. So you don't live in the same reality as your neighbors anymore. We spend more and more of our lives on these. with screens in front of us. So a lot of your reality is shaped by an algorithm, and that algorithm is going to be vastly different for you than it is for somebody else. It's one of the things I try to point out to myself every day. It's like how much of what how I'm interpreting things is colored by my own bias that's been created by what I choose to look at. And it's very hard when you're wrapped up in your own algorithm, in where you seek your information, to realize that other people just aren't seeing the world the same way you are anymore. We don't have those 4 major news networks that were all feeding us the same information all the time. Now, in a way, that's a beautiful thing. We've democratized information in a way that it's never been before.
We've compartmentalized it, right? And sectioned it off. Yeah.
But the disparate realities we've created are an outcome for that. The question is, can we as human beings take the knowledge that we've been given and our ability to seek out information and process it in a way that can bring us closer together rather than divide us? I think I know the answer to that, but I'm not going to be as impressed. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, we need one of those things from your studio that makes loud noises. Do you
yes.
have
sadly, I don't have one with me right now.
Oh, man. I said something to Mary the other day or like weeks ago that I hope she didn't take the wrong way, because I'd asked her if she wanted to do like a woman to woman like talk, film it, but like us talking about like feminism and stuff. And she asked how that would be different than what we did when I was with y'all. And I said, well, for one thing, the buzzers wouldn't be going off and the money wouldn't be flying.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to have a serious discussion when there's like money flying at you and lights changing color. Like the other week, me and we had Lisa as a guest on. Lisa does the booking for Culture War, and me and her started to get into this debate about the legalization of drugs and policy and stuff like that. And then finally, Mary's just like, "This is a pop culture show, guys. Can we not do this?" We're like looking around, like, yes, the lights are purple and green in here, and there is money flying anywhere. Perhaps this isn't the venue.
Oh man, well, it works really well for your show, and I mean, obviously you're doing really well. It's funny though. I think I told you this that my mom watched when I went on the last time when I went on your show, and which I thought went really well, and everybody was telling me it gone really well. But I asked my mom, well, what did you think? And her response was like, well, considering it, what did she say? She said it was one of the most annoying experiences that she had in a long time. Oh man,
it's not for everyone. It's not for everyone. That's fine.
No,
that's fine.
And by the way, congratulations, people who've just joined us or whatever. They just hit 100,000. So just letting people know, I'm really happy. Y'all have grown a lot, because when I went on there in the summer, I think that you were just into the 50s. So that's huge. That's huge growth. It's really good. So when do you get your button in the mail?
I haven't gotten an email yet, and I'm pissed. I want the email because supposedly you can request, you can pay extra to get more than one, because otherwise me and Mary are gonna have to cut it down the middle and split it. And I want my own
baby.
I want to put one up behind me.
I can see it now. True crime. YouTuber killed by another YouTuber over a fight
play button. Over the silver play button. Yes, that's so sad.
Hey, can I ask you something random, and then we'll go to break, and then when we come back on, I want to talk about more about the Super Bowl and also Kanye. Get Kanye in there, but and Lil Jon. I want to talk about Lil Jon from the Super Bowl. But here's something random. So, have you followed all the story about the guy who beheaded his dad on YouTube?
I saw the video. I wish I hadn't seen the video.
What? You saw him behead his dad?
No, I saw the video of him holding it up.
Holding it. Okay, did it look fake or did it look real? Like, did you know you were looking at something real?
I was looking at it on a phone screen and the resolution wasn't that great. Like, maybe I've just watched a lot of movies, but I'm very desensitized to it. I was like, wish I hadn't seen that.
But did it look real though? Or did it look like it did? Wow.
Yeah.
And so what was his thing? What was he promoting in that act?
Oh God. I think he claimed that he was Jesus, or he wouldn't compare himself to Jesus. It was something to do with the militia. I watched the video and that was
just like completely like crazy. Like
he's a psychopath, dude. He's nuts. So
that is something though that you don't hear about very often. I know that like when ISIS was really in their heyday and everything, they would be uploading really disgusting videos online, although not to YouTube, right? Just like different, more
Facebook. Facebook, like
they
that.
would?
So I remember some Facebook content mods talking about like how they have like PTSD from their job because of the heinous shit that people upload to Facebook all the time.
Yeah, I think I've seen that story too, or read one of those stories. You would think that like AI would catch stuff like that really fast, like violence and stuff, detect things, but maybe not. I don't know.
I mean, these days, like, how is it supposed to distinguish between a movie trailer and I mean, I don't know, right? Like, it's funny because we have stuff that's flagged all the time for language. That still happens all the time for content that we're talking about, but. I did, however, like we did have a nude woman show up on our show, like on the screen one day because of damn Twitter. I refreshed a feed and just nudity ended up on stage. I had to immediately pull the episode and cut it out. Not good.
What was it? What, a nude woman from what?
Oh, what was it? So somebody was on stage at some event and they were naked, and we had like the edited version on screen. Right, like it had the black bars over there, and like when we do our show, we set everything up in the morning, in the early afternoon of the morning. So I had all the tabs ready beforehand, and I made the mistake of hitting refresh, and like the first response underneath it was the unedited video version of the video, and it was just too quick, and I immediately took it off screen, but I had to pull the episode right away.
It's interesting how they're so strict about some things, and then I feel like other things go right under the radar. I know that it seems like, because I watch a lot of ASMR videos, I'm kind of amazed at what can slip under the radar there with the ASMR. It's some of the ASMR. Some of you who watch ASMR will know some of those ASMR videos are almost like softcore porn, or maybe it's pushing a little bit, but like I'm definitely like, this is kind of a fetishy video, but then they seem to get away with it, get millions of views too, lots of attention, seem to get away with it. So I don't know. It's interesting how all that works. I'm not sure, but
ASMR videos are my hell. I will never watch an ASMR video. Oh, please. Like people who willingly watch food ASMR should be checked by a psychologist. They should. It's wrong. Stop it. That's not as bad as the food stuff. Like
the
people who eat on stream. Oh, no, thank you.
I'm mostly there. I do watch ASMR pretty good, but I'm mostly there for the hair videos, or as they're called in the ASMR community, hair play videos, which to me kind of sounds almost sexual, but anyway.
Yes, it does.
But yeah, I like those videos. I like there's not some nice like hair washing video. There's just anything, with like imagining someone getting their hair touched. But there's a lot of it that I'm kind of like, I'm trying to. I think that, and we'll go to break. But I think that the earwax cleaning videos, ASMR videos, are the most perplexing because I can't imagine anyone finding that relaxing. But apparently there are tons of people who do because it's a huge genre. Look it up on YouTube. Earwax cleaning.
I
ASMR,
will, however.
Everywhere.
I will watch the videos of like ears getting cleaned out though.
Are you a secret earwax cleaning fetishist? All right, Shane
not the pimple stuff. That stuff's weird, but the ears getting cleaned out, yes, I will.
Oh man. Now Shane is responding to something. I missed his message, so I don't even know what he's responding to. He says the show is annoying, but it's mostly just because us crisis actors are. Oh, he's talking about your show. Crisis actors are.
He's defending me from your mom. That's what he's doing right now.
Oh, that's right. When my mom
he's defending me from your mother. And Shane, I appreciate that, buddy. Thank you so much. I'm not strong enough to defend myself, so I do appreciate that.
Shane's a great fan. Yes. He seems to really support y'all, and I think that's really cool. He must have been really excited. I saw that Shane was very excited that he was the first comment on Timcast about y'all, right? About your show.
Yeah, when we hit 100,000, he tweeted it so that my boss would know that that we got the channel to 100,000. I don't know if Tim even knew yet because they'd go like we hit 100,000 like right after our show. So I don't know. Like I think I put it in like the company Slack or something like that. But I don't know if he saw that before the show went live. So thank you, Shane, for letting my boss know because I would have. I might have sent him a message. I don't know if I would have, but not knowing that you told him meant I didn't have to. So thank you.
That's funny. It's kind of like when Mary tweeted, when your boss finally follows you on Instagram or whatever, like it had been months or whatever she was working for. Oh man. All right. We're going to take a break, people. I know Brett is in the home stretch here because he's been going at it all day. But we'll come back in like I don't know, it's like 8:57. I don't know. We'll come back in like probably around 7 minutes. So I'll see you in a bit. There we go. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, cool. So I was going to go through some things on my Instagram here. Hello to everyone. So here's one question I have. Are you, who are you more tired of? Are you more tired of Taylor Swift, hearing about Taylor Swift or Kanye? Do you have
both of them equally? Look, the thing is, like, for the Taylor Swift stuff, I don't have any deep interest in her. I have a fascination with the public's fascination.
Yes.
More than anything.
Yes,
I find the ability of somebody to be famous for that long and then suddenly emerge the juggernaut that they are today after already being famous. I saw somewhere she owned her first private jet in 2009.
Oh my Lord.
It's crazy.
Wow.
Like, it's crazy to me that somebody can have like that long of a career, but really kind of come into this level of fame that she's in now, on the, when she's already been famous for as long as she has. I find that kind of fascinating. I find the lore that's being built around her to be fascinating, and how everyone seems to take their stories. We seem to talk about her, it feels like every day in some fashion, but the stories are there, and it's interesting to see how the public perceives such a thing, because I see it from both perspectives. Working around a lot of people who are interpreting it as a political thing. There's a lot of people who are just normies who don't really get it, or like who don't really get the fascination. It's interesting. The Kanye stuff doesn't really interest me all that much. I'm always going to love Kanye as a musician. I'm always going to love his music. But the social element, his marriage and all of the shenanigans don't really interest me a whole lot. I laugh at them most of the time.
Well, let me ask you. So I have a few questions for your opinion, since we haven't really talked about, I don't think, some of this much. I've noticed that people like, and I put up here, it's a Bryson, the creator, Bryson, Christian rapper, who was, I guess, it's pretty good friends with at one point Kanye, or at least was like Kanye had brought him in to apparently to make sure that everything with like the lyrics and his music was like in line with, Christianity, what have you. And so Bryson has been really, we talked about this a bit last week, but he's been very vocal in saying that he thinks Kanye is now, gone off the mark, so to speak. But here's my question to you. As someone who I'm sure, like me, doesn't care what Kanye believes or what kind of music he's putting out or what have you, do you think that there is a legitimate critique here in that Kanye spent years really enforcing this idea of like, you need to be in line with Christianity and the Lord and Christian practice and all that, and now that he has changed, do you think that he should be so pissy with his fans, or so perplexed as to why some of them or some of his friends like Bryson are having a problem? Or do you think they're just being whiny bitches, basically?
Look, here's the thing. I think that when you court that audience, like, they're going to have very, very rigid ideas about how you should create your art. And the last thing most artists want to hear is you telling them what they can and can create, how they should or shouldn't live. Now, is there hypocrisy there, that him telling you to fall, to follow Jesus and then not live by those values? Yeah, there's hypocrisy there. I think Shane in the chat might have mentioned earlier, because we did talk about this on the show, that he believes that it's edginess for the sake of edginess. I see it as like, I like the term that we used that one time, church hurt. If you've been hurt by the church, it can tend to make you rebel. I think a lot of the reasons we see a lot of Catholic motif in Hollywood these days is there's a lot of disaffected writers who might have come from Catholic upbringings that feel like it's edgy or cool to push back on the religion that they were raised in, right? But I think for someone like Kanye, perhaps you just get sick of people telling you, look, you have to do your art this way. You have to live that way. It still makes him a hypocrite. Absolutely. But I don't know if he should really be expecting anything less, given that the group that he's courted have very, very strong moral stances and values that they're going to push back on you on when you don't live up to it. The problem is, I feel like, just like with politics, most of this stuff just kind of devolves into purity tests. everyone,
yeah.
which I think are stupid and pointless and a waste of time. And it feels like that's what most of the internet's like, especially political Twitter, it always just boils down to, it just devolves into everyone purity testing one another to see who's the real conservative, who's the real this or that. And I don't have time for that. I just don't.
And I'm sure Kanye would probably say, well, I haven't moved on from Christianity. It's just that I've moved on from thinking that the appearance of sexual virtue or sexual purity is important. I mean, maybe he would just say, I've evolved in my thinking, and I'm now in a phase where I'm actually just more comfortable with artistic sexual provocation or nudity or what have you. I don't know. It could be my thing is just that I think he should be easier on his fans and some of these friends that he acquired who really did buy into all of this. And also, it's like you said, when you court a very religious group of people, you're tapping into people's like deepest psyches there with the spirituality or with the religious beliefs. It's not like, oh, I changed from this tempo to this tempo, or I went from a glam rock album to a country album or whatever. It's like, no, it's like there's a little bit more going on here. And so I don't know, but I do think the other issue here, Brett, is an issue just of, honestly, of a kind of a whiplash, because it was a fast transition. Like, I think, for instance, like Marilyn Manson. I might be wrong, and I don't claim to fully understand the ins and outs of the Marilyn Manson fan base, but I have a feeling that when Marilyn Manson comes out with new music, I'm not saying he's going to come out with a gospel album or anything, but when he comes out with new music, I don't think it's going to be exactly the same as what he was producing, thematically in the 90s or even the 2000s. But I think that people would understand that. Like, I think that his fans would say, okay, of course we don't expect the same kind of formula as you had back then. But with Kanye, it's just been so fast. It's like 1 minute he was here and railing at everybody to get their houses in order, and then the next minute it's here.
Yeah. Doesn't Lil Jon have a spoken word album coming out soon?
Well, I looked at his site, his Instagram, yesterday when he did the SuperBowl, and I see that he's into meditation, practicing meditation stuff.
Oh, a guided meditation. That's what it was. It was a meditation. Yeah, it's interesting. Look, the Kanye music that I loved was like more the stuff critiquing materialistic culture and stuff like that. I say all the time, All Falls Down is one of my favorite songs of all time. And a lot of his more activist-oriented music, the stuff he did with Talib Kweli, We Can Make It Better, all of this stuff, which is, you'd think I would hate because a lot of it is very, it involves racial politic, it involves all these things, but he did it in such a way that was just so captivating. And I think that's what I love about him so much is like, I can look at someone who makes art. Like it's funny. Like, I hate activist art for the most part, but there are artists that have made music that I love that falls into that. Kanye would be one of them. I've mentioned several times before, there's an artist named Sage Francis, who's a hip hop artist who made a lot of like anti-war music back in the early 2000s, which I really, really enjoyed because it was at a time when it was brave to criticize the war. Back then, because back then, it was people were falling in line behind. And I'm talking like not soon after 9/11.
Yeah, post 9/11, post 9/11. It was considered mostly very unpatriotic to be against the war in Afghanistan and in Iraq. Yeah. No, it's absolutely true. Marilyn Manson. Marilyn Manson says, you said his new music would suck, and you said Marilyn Manson's new album wouldn't be good. Well, let me correct you here, since you bring this up. Actually, what I said was that I thought he was facing such a significant PR hurdle that the album would have to bring tears to people's eyes for it to make big progress for him in terms of PR and a career rebirth. Now, I have come to a place of more optimism about that because of some things that I think have shifted even over the last few months with people's views of woke culture, Me Too, things like that. And also what I've seen people like Oliver Anthony, even though I kind of don't like that song. I think it's annoying, but people like him who have been able, or even like Ben Shapiro and Tom McDonald, right, who have been able to self-publish music and get around the mainstream media, get around the music industry barriers, and have been very successful in a way, at least in a limited sense. But like
it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
A lot of work.
so I understand like where you're coming from with these comments, because I know that it pissed off a number of Manson fans that I was being so negative, but I have been for over 3 years now, or 3 years, I have been fighting for Manson and for the truth. But at times, it has been a very, I just have to say, very sort of cynicism inducing exercise, as it, at times there didn't seem to be a lot of hope in terms of the PR battle, or in terms of his larger prospects. But I don't know. I do think the album's probably going to be good, because I've heard from a number of people who've listened to it that it is good. But I am just dubious as to, I have been dubious as to how much he would be able to do within the confines of this Me Too cage that he's in. But I am more optimistic now that I've seen what other people are able to do. I don't know. We talked about this a bit,
Yeah.
Brett. Do you think it's gotten sort of, things have loosened up a little now?
I wonder, one of the questions I always ask myself when one of these things comes out is like, how much of this is like terminally online behavior? Like how much of the average Manson fan base, like, and I'm not talking like the diehards who pay very close attention, to what happened in his personal life, because obviously they've been fighting for him since all of this started from the beginning. But like, how many of these people paid such close attention that they're not going to buy his music because of these news stories? Like, how many of them actually know, or how many of them just want to hear new music? I always wonder how much of it is terminally online behavior. I just saw recently that Kevin Spacey is going to be at like a convention soon. He's going to be making his first ever convention appearance. And I always ask the question, I'm like, how many people actually know what the cases were against him, know that he went to trial a bunch of times? How many of them just thought, I wonder why he wasn't in the 6th season of House of Cards? Like, I wonder about this, about all the celebrities that go through this stuff. Like, usually if you've built a fan base that large, like, you're still going to be able to find enough people to make your money back and make your art commercially successful once you've kind of made it over a certain level. Like, it maybe it won't be the numbers that it was going to do before your reputation took the hit, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to make your money back by doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so, and I'm more optimistic about it now. Like I said, I think that the thing is just that what I was saying to the Manson supporters earlier in this video that he or she's referencing, is that I feel like sometimes those of us who cover this case, we get kind of immune to how bad it really sounds to other people. Like when you actually like read the things that Manson is accused of, like it's like as horrible as it gets, basically, right? And so my concern was just that, if Manson still had to work in these normal parameters of like needing a label or a manager, or like venues that like insurance companies would say, okay, we're fine with host, like it just gets so bureaucratic and messy when we talk about legal liabilities and people's desire to avoid any kind of like danger or controversy or anything. I just felt like really skeptical, but I do think things have loosened up. And I think that, Manson, I've heard, has some good people behind him, either sort of publicly he's going to have standing up for him, or like privately people who with influence who are working behind the scenes. So I just have to have some faith that things will be better than I thought there. And it's like Kevin Spacey's doing a movie, right?
Yep, he's got a new movie. He's got a couple of them coming out, I think. What I always think about this is funny. Like, we get kind of caught in our own bubble as well. Like, when you cover this stuff all the time, you forget that the average person who works a normal job, pays attention to movies or music kind of, sparingly when they have the time. Like, are they going to really be like, oh, Marilyn Manson, who faced all these accusations from Evan Rachel Wood, all this stuff? Or are they going to say, didn't something maybe bad come out about him a while ago? I don't really remember. What's this new album sound like? But that's where the media does their most damage, because then they come out and they say, Marilyn Manson, who has been accused of all of these things, has a new album coming out today.
Right. And so I hope that they give it, I hope that again, people are able to get firsthand access to it, because they won't have to go through reviews. Because I also would think that the reviews, don't you think that even if the album is really great, that the reviews are probably, for the mainstream media, are still going to be negative? Like, are they going to say, wow, it's an amazing, maybe they will, I don't know.
Like, I mean, a lot of it may not even be on purpose. It may be that, like, look, they go in to watch this piece, to listen to this piece of art, and their preconceptions about what they think he is it has a sway on how they perceive it. One of the things that I pride myself the most in my job is like when I go see a movie with somebody who's said crappy stuff on social media, or is like one of these people that's always talking crap on Twitter about people and stuff like this, is that you have to be able to just leave that at the door and watch it and, base your opinions on how the movie was and not necessarily how you feel about that person. Two movies that I didn't hate over the summer I didn't like the Flash movie, but I really liked Ezra Miller's performance in the Flash movie. I thought that he did about the most you could do with that script, even though I didn't think it was a great movie. I think he hit the emotional beats that he needed to. And I thought that in the Hunger Games movie, I thought that Rachel Zegler was fine, and the lady can sing and did her job well. But that's because, you have to make it part of your job to be like, look, I can criticize the things you say here. I can think that you're not acting in good faith, but that's not my job in this instance. My job in this instance is to critique this piece of entertainment. How do I feel about this piece of entertainment? Then the hard part is to try to separate yourself from that. I don't think most critics are actually really do that super well. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's at least worth asking the question for. But that's why people as consumers have to be more. First of all, it's why reviews are less important than ever. I was just listening to Taylor Sheridan on Joe Rogan, which, by the way, if you haven't watched it, guys, go listen to Taylor. It's from like a couple months ago, I think. Taylor Sheridan, he's the guy who created Yellowstone. He did Mayor of Kingstown.
He created a fucking empire is what he's done. And his stories.
Tulsa King, Sicario.
Yeah.
He gave this interview where they basically do talk about how like reviewers are more irrelevant than they've ever been. He says that everything that he makes, it's got like a 90 or above audience score, and it's got like a 30 or a 40 critic score. Nobody gives a crap about what critics think anymore. If Manson wants to do it, he's got to publish on his own. He's certainly got the resources to be able to do that, right? He can build on his own. So, hopefully that the fans just come for it and they leave their thoughts about what the media said about these cases at the door.
Yeah, I hope so. And I think it's definitely looking more, it seems more of an optimistic situation than it was. You bring up Taylor Sheridan, by the way, and I just want to tell people about his story briefly, if they're not aware, because he is an example of someone who really stuck it out when his career seemed like it was just in the toilet, and achieved success a bit later in life. So that really it's only in the last 5 years or so that he has achieved big success.
Well, but Sicario was 2015. And that's almost a decade ago now. But as far as he's built his television empire, in the last 5 years.
But we'll say even that. Let's say even the last 10 years. He's 50. He's like 55 or 56 years old now, and so this is someone who I think for people, I think there are a lot of people who think, oh well, if I haven't, whatever my dream or goal is, doesn't need to be in the entertainment industry necessarily, but if I haven't done it by 25 or 30, then I'm just done. And I think he's such a great example of someone who, like, at one point, I think when he was still in his late 30s, early 40s, even, he was living with his family in a trailer home, like really kind of in poverty, and the Sons of Anarchy thing sort of, it gave him a bit of a bump, right? But really, like,
I love him on Sons of Anarchy.
He's good.
He's great on Sons of Anarchy. That's it. The funny thing is he's like I feel like 20, 30 years ago, he's like leading. He's got the looks of like a leading man. Like he's the tall, dark, and handsome dude who like absolutely fits the bill, right? Like he's got the dark features. He's got the like the kind of hooded eyes and the and dark hair. Like he's great. And so he went on to do so much better. But I think, and then in that interview, he points out that he wanted to make that transition to working behind the camera. And he talks about how like there were certain projects where he watched, he goes, I don't even know what this is, but I want to do this. I want to tell stories. And what they don't like about him is that he likes to see, look at the guy. He absolutely looks like he could have excelled in the age of the Western. Does he not?
Yeah,
right?
he does.
He's got like there's Josh Brolin energy there. Like he could have been Josh Brolin from a different generation.
Yeah,
but,
so this is Taylor. Sorry, this is someone was asking. This is Taylor Sheridan, and he is the writer and producer of Yellowstone and not 14,
1883, 1923,
bunch of shows.
Mayor of Kingstown, Tulsa King. He's made some that I don't like. I didn't like Special Ops Lioness. I don't think that was good, but I think he might have just produced that one. But for the most part, like I always point out, Sicario is one of my favorite movies of all time. I was literally just watching it again right before, like on Thursday last week, and I may have to finish it tonight. But like I like the second one too, but it was one of those movies that definitely didn't need a sequel necessarily, but it was still good. But Denis Villeneuve was involved in the first one, which is why I like it so much. Right. But he's one of those, like what he talks about when he's talking to Rogan is he says like, look, I like to entertain, and I like to leave him with a whole bunch of questions and not give I don't need to treat them like idiots. I don't need to give them the answers. I'm going to present you a whole bunch of information. I'm going to give you a bunch of stuff to learn. And then you make up your mind how you feel about this. And that's what storytellers should be looking to do. One of the things that we've been talking about recently is all this stuff going on. We did this topic where Chris Gore got some open letters written to him by people who work in the industry who talk about how 20 years ago when you were in these pitch meetings for movies, the idea was like, how can we entertain an audience? Now it's how can we educate an audience? And what can we teach the audience? And the idea that Taylor Sheridan will give you the information but not tell you how to think, I think that's a very powerful thing that more people are looking for, and you're going to see even less of it in Hollywood. He can do it because he's built, like you said, he's built an empire. He's got the capital to be able to do that. Not everyone does.
Well, speaking of entertainment, I wanted to close by talking about Twisters because I'm curious. Okay, so by the way, people, there is a sequel to Twisters.
Speaking of sequels that didn't need to happen, that didn't need to exist.
That's what I don't understand. So I would like to show the trailer, y'all, but when I show things like that on StreamYard, it's crappy quality. So we're about to get off in a few minutes. You can look it up yourself. But it's just a Twisters trailer. It's what you'd expect. It's nothing revolutionary. It's some cool tornado footage and some kind of bad dialogue like we got in the first one. Here's my question. I don't understand all this hostility about the new Twisters because it's not like we're talking about some masterwork of cinema that was going to be marred by coming out with a sequel. Like the first one sucks too. It was just great. It was great tornado footage. It looks like the second one's going to be great tornado footage. Like I don't understand what's being like sort of desecrated here with the second one.
Look, first of all, there's no Bill Paxton. There's no Bill Paxton.
There's that hot guy from Top Gun. I'll take him.
It's Glenn Powell. Look, I will say, I criticized this movie when it was first announced. I thought the trailer was fun. I thought the trailer was fun.
Well,
and
good.
I do have a soft I'm like you. I do have a soft spot for disaster movies.
Well, I just want to say I'm putting up a picture here of the two main characters, one of whom is Glenn Powell. But if you look at these, if you're a man, you're a woman, you're gay, or you're straight, isn't there something to like here in this picture? I mean, come on. And then you put some tornadoes behind it.
Haircut, that's for sure.
He does look a little
that hair is awful.
He looks a little Ken doll. But like if you just imagine these two attractive people and then there's like a big like funnel cloud behind, I mean that's pretty much all you need.
It could have been like my own version of like weird pareidolia, but when I saw her on screen in like one of the wide shots, I thought she even looked a little bit like Helen Hunt. Like,
is she supposed to be her daughter though, or something? Right? I thought
they were saying it was like a sequel in spirit, but from what I understand, that climate change is going to play a part in the storytelling for this movie. So what you have to remember, guys, I'm going to let you in on something that maybe they don't always point out. Because, yes, a lot of the times when they advertise these movies, they say that there's going to be this deep social justice theme. And, yes, sometimes that's true. But more often than not, it's like a couple of just like ham-fisted comments that are thrown into the movie that make it social justice. And usually more often than not, whether it destroys the movie or not is how well it was written or how bad it was written. The best example being, for me, I was already not really enjoying the Batman. So when I heard Catwoman mention white privilege, I just kind of like it was the last straw and it took me out of it entirely. Another example was at the beginning of the new Transformers movie, the one that came out this year. You had like a dude on a street corner in New York City, supposedly in the 90s, criticizing capitalism, which as somebody who lived through the 90s and watched movies in the 90s, it's just not something that would have been said or done. So it immediately took me out of the movie. It's not a matter of how much propaganda will be in it. It's about how well it's exercised. I don't even necessarily hate progressive storylines. I hate them when they're done badly. Right. So it's a matter of like, is it going to incorporate climate change heavily, or will it mostly be about buildings being torn apart and cows being twisted around in tornadoes?
Well, I just hope we get some great CGI footage. I will put up with a lot of stuff. I tell you, the best tornado, just because I love tornado scenes so much, the best scene that I ever saw, people, if you're interested, just look it up. It's on YouTube. I'm not going to give a link. Just look it up. But it's from the movie Into the Storm, which I have to say overall was not a very good movie. But there's a scene at the end. You look it up. It's called Pete's Death Scene. Into the Storm, Pete's death scene, and it's about this guy who's in his car, and he's in it's a souped up car that's designed to like go into tornadoes, right? And his dream is to see a tornado, the inside of a tornado. So he gets caught up in it, and he gets like sees the funnel, he's in the funnel, and then he gets like kicked up into the sunlight, and then he goes down and dies. But like, it's a beautiful scene of being inside the tornado. I liked the scene at the end of Twister when Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton, they have to run into that shed, remember? And they get tied up to like a well, and then they're just like dangling there as tornado comes overhead. It's some great footage. So
what if they had gotten Roland Emmerich to make this? That would have been great. What if
he did the Day After Tomorrow, right? Which also
he did and 2012. Love Day After Tomorrow. Day After Tomorrow. Very young Ryan Gosling. No, not very young Jake Gyllenhaal and what's her name?
Emmy Rossum.
Emmy Rossum. Emmy Rossum's great. So again, another movie that I love that they're like, he goes to a climate change conference. Oh, sorry, global warming conference. I don't remember if they referred to it as climate change.
I think it's global warming back then. Yeah.
No, they probably would have had to. It would have made no sense to refer to it as global warming and then the whole planet freezes.
Well,
but, so he goes to the climate change convention, and then they're like, it happens the next day, or it happens the day of the climate change convention that New York starts to freeze over. And even then he goes, I was talking in like 100 years or something. I'm like, it's not going to happen in 100 years either, bro. That's why I am no longer just, all the people who are like climate change isn't real. No, I'm just pro climate change now. I think this planet could use being 2 or 3 degrees warmer.
Oh man, I just always plead ignorance on this, because even though I have read stuff from all sides and everything, like it's just beyond me. I just have to say though that like I'm just very suspicious of grand narratives. And when people say, okay, well, so we're going to start demanding like extreme societal changes and so forth. And I'm like, well, do we have a consensus enough to be able to do that? And here's the thing, like, I know about academia, and I know people say, oh, well, according to academics, according to scientists, this is this, but like, I understand from the inside how when there is a political hot button issue, that it becomes then very difficult to get your ideas then accepted in and promoted in academia. And I've just read numerous cases of intellectuals who actually were not in line with the climate change movement, and who basically got, no pun intended, frozen out. And so you like that? So I don't know about that, but I am excited though. I'm excited about Twisters, and I'm definitely going to be getting in line to see some great CGI footage. But everybody,
it was a good it was a fun trailer. I mean, it was kind of like a single note the whole way through, but I had a lot of fun with it. And Glenn Powell is kind of becoming one of these bigger actors of this next generation. He's doing a lot of big things.
He's got charisma. I like him. All right. Well, everybody, we will catch you hopefully again next week. We were supposed to talk about names. So everybody, your assignment is to help us. We'll start next week trying to brainstorm or come up with names. So think about a good name for our live stream. and we'll come back next week and
then we got to add numbers. We got to number all of these.
Figure it out and number the live streams. Okay, I'll do that. All right, everybody. Yeah, we will see you later. And check out Pop Culture Crisis. As always, they just reached 100,000 views. They're going to be fighting over the YouTube button. So
3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're live Monday through Friday. Come hang out with us. It's a lot of fun.
Yes, and thank you again to my mods, AJ and Vanessa and Laura B. And I don't know if Rebel Bird was here tonight, but thank you generally, Rebel Bird. And yeah, we'll see y'all later. Bye-bye.